This guy writes, is it normal for a guy to ask what your number is? That might actually be a woman writing this. But anyway, it's like, if someone asks you this, whether you're a man or a woman, it's like really none of the other person's business, especially in the early dating stages. But it's like you can kind of tell. So it's like you can kind of tell if the person has a high body count or not. Um, and you can tell by sometimes it's like they're just kind of transaction based. It's almost like they're treating it like, okay, let's just get this over with. Let's go have sex. And they're just kind of like outcome based. It's not too exciting. You don't feel like a ton of attraction, but then even though you don't feel that attraction, it's like they're making moves to go have sex with you. So that's really one give off. Let's get into the post, see where this guy's or this person's coming from. I'm still somewhat traumatized from a past relationship where my ex, very conservative Christian, slut shamed me about the number of people I've been with. And that's such bullshit, dude. Yeah. Now I'm always worried that the next person will ask and feel the same way. So it's like, so this is woman writing this post, and one of women's biggest fears is to be labeled a slut by their friends, by their peer groups. And then when somebody does this, it's just like taking another person's insecurity and just weaponizing it. And it's a horrible way to go. It's a really low integrity move. And it's just like, yeah, it's like a guy identifies as a very conservative Christian, but then he's doing things like this because he's like, oh, well, my philosophy is right and you're wrong for having sex with multiple people. Now I have the right, that gives me the right to punish you. It's just like, that's bullshit, dude. I know all men care to a certain degree. Well, sometimes there is. I've seen like studies, and people refer to studies and stuff on like women with a higher body count sometimes just struggle with monogamous relationships, and that might actually be the case. But still, I mean, at those early stages, it's really none of their business. Um, and it's not like this hard rule that, oh, if you have if sex with a bunch of people, then you're disloyal. It's like, it doesn't mean that. You have to have the skills to recognize situations and people and read people, and you can't just kind of generalize because people are different. You know, people, they value things different, they see the world different. But you can't just you can't do something like this, just weaponize someone's insecurities. I know all men care to a certain degree, but is it normal to have to know? Not necessarily. Is anyone in a relationship where it doesn't matter / they don't know? Update, I asked because I started seeing someone new and we were on the subject, and he asked me. I said I don't want to say. He said it's lower than 7, right? I got a little defensive and said, what's your number instead? He said his was 10. Yeah, and what you'll notice is that some guys exaggerate, and so he's like round numbering. Oh, it's 10. It's probably less. It's probably maybe half that. And then she usually kind of underrates like how many men she's been with, or she doesn't count like lesbian encounters or lesbian sex or whatever. Or sometimes she doesn't count like, oh, if they're not in a relationship, if it was just like a one-time thing, you can't count that. So just be aware of that concept. I was very vague and just said mine was similar to his because I didn't want to answer. A part of me wonders if I should just be honest, and if it bothers him enough, then maybe he's not the one. Thanks for everyone responding. It honestly means a lot considering the shit I've been through. Yeah, I mean, well, at the end of the day, one, it's none of his business. And then it's also your responsibility if it is like a super high body count and then you haven't been like tested for anything, then, or of something that you've had in the past, then it's a total obligation to you to speak up and say what's going on, because you can't just like spread that shit. But if it's like, everything's cool, then it's really none of the other guy's business. If you wanted to take the approach that you mentioned, which was just tell people straight up and be honest about it, and then see if they accept you or not, well, you can or you can't. But if you do that, you have to own it. So it's like if he shames you or whatever, then you have to own it. It's like, yeah, so what? Like, okay. And then he's having this freak out. She's a slut. Like, this is like, you're a freak, dude, and you're a psycho, and get out of my life. Um, so, I mean, there's lots of ways to approach it. Usually what I've seen is that people just don't say it, and they say, well, it's really something personal, and I don't really want to share it. And you always have that choice. Know that you always can say that you don't want to talk about it. So I can't really give you a definitive answer on what you should do. I mean, that's really up to you or your situation. You have a lot more context and references to your own life than I do. And so do what you feel, but if whatever it is, you have to own your decision and stick by it, and don't be like, oh, halfway in, halfway out on what you decide. You have to go in 100%. Each one will have its benefits. Each one will have its drawbacks. Be able to handle both the benefits and the drawbacks. And if you can't, maybe you don't make that decision.